So there's not a ton to talk about as it pertains to the Golden State Valkyries. Obviously, they're in the offseason. They're watching the WNBA Finals just like we are. But I was actually interested because I know you were following a few of the players and where they were playing overseas and trying to, keep an eye on how they were doing. I've seen some stuff that Janelle's like playing really well, and this is coming off of her all rookie WNBA team. What about some of the other players? Do you have an idea where they're at right now?
Yeah, I know where mostly everyone's at roughly. I haven't really tuned into the Euro League or European seasons to kind of actually visually watch, but yeah, Carla and Yuste are both in the Spanish league. And I believe Chechi's in the Italian league, playing where Janelle played last year. I think Janelle and now Caitlin Chen. Caitlin Chen joined Janelle's team. The Czech teams like USK Praha or something like that. I don't know how good I am with that pronunciation. And then Monique and Illy are in the Turkish league. They're playing for Fenerbahce, which is like a pretty popular team. I think it's the one Misaman was on. They have a lot of WNBA players. I mean, who else? Veronica, we have confirmed, is playing Unrivaled. Kate's playing Unrivaled. I remember Amihir said she was going to play in China, but you know what? Amihir's also on Yuste's team for the time being in Spain. I haven't seen any updates though on how people are playing. I've seen a few Yuste highlights, and just that corner three is cash. But shout out to the Discord because we have someone who's like actually watching and keeping up with this stuff. So to give some promo to our Discord, I think people should join because we have someone who's, and maybe you could say the name because I don't remember the name of the user, but he's got it all down. He knows exactly where everyone is. He's watching Euro League and all the other leagues as well.
Yeah, hopefully they're not offended that I'm giving away the name that they use. But Dutch E, shout out to Dutch E, who's keeping us up to date on the ongoings internationally. And then we've talked about this already, but there are several Valkyries players who are playing in Unrivaled. Monique Billings, Kate Martin, Veronica Burton. It doesn't sound like Tip is playing, right?
Doesn't look like it.
So we'll be able to get our fix there, and we'll talk a little bit about Unrivaled in a second because I think it's related to this conversation that we're going to have about Napheesa Collier and her comments about the commissioner of the WNBA in Cathy Englebert. But is there anything that you're specifically paying attention to as it pertains to the Valkyries off season, before we get into the free agency, before we get into draft stuff again, before we get into expansion draft? Is there anything like you're trying to keep an eye on as far as, anything towards next year? Like it is really the dullness of the season until the finals are over and then it kickstarts again with off season.
No, I mean, because like everything kind of hangs on the CBA negotiations. I believe they have like an October 31st deadline that does not seem like it's going to be met. I wonder if the lockout's happening. Like literally, like the expansion draft rules is what's the most important news for the Valkyries to come next, and you can't do that unless you have like the CBA figured out, right? So you really can't look forward to, I mean, the only thing I could think of is Vanya. Vanya was the VP. I forget her official title for the Valkyries, but she's now the GM of the Portland Fire. I guess they got to replace that position if they haven't replaced it already. But other than that, like, no, I mean, can't really do anything until these expansion rules come, which I think rely on the CBA negotiations.
Yeah, and we'll see that this offseason might get started before we even realized if Vegas keeps playing the way that they're playing. And actually, let's just kick it off and let's talk about the NBA or the WNBA finals here. Las Vegas and Phoenix game 1 was an awesome basketball game. I was just amazed at how good the teams were playing in game 1. Now there were a few things here and there where you're like, oh, first finals game jitters, but overall the game was excellent. Game 2, not so much for Phoenix. Las Vegas pretty much controlled that game. Maybe after the first quarter was over, but What is your takeaway from the first two games? Vegas holds court. The first two games in Vegas, they win both. Now we're going back to Phoenix. Phoenix has got to win 2 out of the next 3, to really have a chance going back to Vegas. Or actually, does it go 2-1-1-1 like the NBA? I don't know how the schedules. I'll look because I have it up while you're talking.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'd guess is 2-2-1-1-1.
So
Right, that's what the NBA does.
what are your takeaways here with the series so far?
Uh, it's not looking so good for Phoenix. I think there's only like a handful of things they can change, and the rest is kind of just reliant on like that home court role player stepping up in home, maybe getting more of a favorable whistle. But I think something that stuck out to me was and Ryan Ruocco was on it, like saying it, and I'll say two things: is that the Satu Sabali kind of shot diet where she gets the ball at the top of the 3-point line, start of the possession, and just kind of jacks it. And you look at her box score, and it's actually a pretty darn good box, aside from like 1 for 7 or 1 for 8 from 3. But from the field, it looks good. Like points looks good. Like everything looks pretty good. But I think just her, I think this is what I noticed in the first game versus the Liberty. She was just like kind of just chucking shots. And then the second game, there's a real intention to drive to the rim and get shots close to the basket. And that was, to me, aside from Breanna Stewart getting hurt, of course, but like that was the turning point, is that Satu is the X factor. She gets like in the paint and then she could work her way inside out. Like that is what I think gives them the best opportunity to win. So, I mean, I think Alyssa Thomas was in a little bit of foul trouble, 4 fouls, but I think she was kind of playing 4 for a while. So other than that, like I think it is just, the Aces are just playing so well. Like it's Asia, Jackie, and Chelsea that are all playing like insane. Like Jackie could win the dang Finals MVP, but I think they have some role players that have been stepping up, and I think Dana Evans has been the one that's kind of caught my eye the most. And only 5 points, but I just feel like there's a calmness, and when the ball's in her hands, like you feel like something good's going to come out of it. So
She was
I
on fire in game 1. I think
totally.
she was 5 of 6 from 3. So, yeah, game 2, they didn't really need her to be that, but game 1, she was kind of the reason they won the game.
There's a lot of DeWanna Bonner minutes, 23 minutes. I think that's the 4th most. No, maybe 5th most in minutes. I guess that's kind of by design, and like, she's a really good player, but can you get more, Wes Beld is someone who's able to hit from distance in the regular season. Maybe at home, she's able to hit a couple and get on the board. She was minus 15. Sammy Whitcomb, kind of same thing. I thought she was out for the series after I watched her leg
Oh
bend,
my gosh, I thought she broke her shin.
these women are flexible, and they were able she was just got right back in. Maybe Akoa Makani as well, just being at home and maybe the fans. I don't know. Like it kind of, to me, I feel like, of course, game 3 is must win. You lose game 3, you go down 3-0. First game 7. I mean, first 7 game finals in WNBA history. I mean, we've seen it in the NBA. You go down 3-0, it's over.
Yeah.
Most likely.
I think you're 100% right about the X factor, though. Satu Sabali should be the one player that Vegas kind of circles and goes, oh man, this is a bit of a matchup nightmare for us. But when she just takes what they give and doesn't force herself into positions of where she can make easy buckets, I think she's kind of playing into their hands. Like Alyssa Thomas, they were doing a lot of doubling and trapping on her at opportune times, like really timely stuff, and you could tell she was getting frustrated. So if they're drawing an extra person on Alyssa Thomas, then you're playing 4-on-3 with the rest of the Mercury, and it's like, okay, Satu, time to eat, right? And she's been sort of just passive and been very okay with shooting long jumpers. Now, Kalea Copper, I thought, has been awesome. Like when they need a bucket, she is, she's playing so hard offensively to score. But then you look at her, some of her stats, and like she had like a terrible plus minus in that second game. So some of it is probably coming at the expense of defensively, where she's just working so hard on offense. But I think you're right. Satu is the X factor. She needs to have like an excellent game in game 3 for Phoenix to be able to throw their best shot, because they had a great game in game 1 and kind of let it slip away a little bit, but they need to throw some haymakers on Wednesday at home. Like, cause what do you have? You have these 2 home games for a reason. You go, okay, Vegas, you did your thing. Now it's our turn to do our thing. They really need to come out with some intention, because if not, you see how Asia Wilson is just so she's like a surgeon with a sharp knife, just so exact in what she wants to do, so perfect in her post moves and getting to her spots. She's playing excellent basketball. I think Jackie Young, I was thinking about this. I was watching the game yesterday. Obviously, I love Caitlin Clark and the way Caitlin Clark plays, love Paige. But like my favorite non-Valkyrie just to watch get buckets or to hoop, it might be Jackie Young. She's so fun to watch. And yesterday's game, what was it? It was the second or the third quarter where she had like 21 points. I think it was the second quarter. She had 21 points in the quarter to like maybe tie or set a record for WNBA Finals game. She was amazing, and she was doing the thing where it was like she was so hot, she knew it, her teammates knew it, and she was just like, "Give me the ball up top." And she'd take like 2 steps, do a move, pull up from 3, bang. And she did that like 2 or 3 times. I was like, man, this woman is just on fire. But it really is about what Phoenix is going to come out with on Wednesday, because they cannot be passive like in game 2. The Aces just ate that stuff up and spit it back out on them. That game could have been like a 30 or 40 point blowout as it was going. So, yeah, I mean, I've been yesterday's game, not great. It wasn't all that entertaining, past a certain part of the third quarter, but game 1 was awesome. So I hope Wednesday is a little bit more like that, because that was just awesome basketball. And I think that's I was talking to somebody about this, and actually I did a podcast the other day to talk about the origin story of our Valk stuff. And so we're talking a little bit of WNBA. And as I was thinking about doing his show, I was thinking about how, there's nothing more fun in watching basketball than to watch excellent shot making. And we see some pretty insane shot making in the NBA, but there is some pretty fantastic shot making in the WNBA. Like, shot making just is unbiased, right? You have the ball and you have skill and you can do something with it and get a bucket in a, like, one of the best things in sports is to watch somebody cook with the basketball. And that's what when I was watching Collier Copper and Jackie Young, and then you're watching Chelsea Gray, just, she's looking like Magic Johnson, like throwing no look passes when there's not really a reason to not look other than to show off, and just putting that thing like right on the money. Like, that stuff is awesome. So that's what I've been enjoying so far. And I want to see Satu Sabali come up. And, I think maybe there's a little bit of the fan base who's kind of aching for Alyssa Thomas to, show out and get close to her title. So there is still some drama left in this thing. As long as Phoenix wins game 3, I think there's still some pretty good interest in what could happen. So, but it's all about Wednesday in game 3.
I feel like the Valkyries should, assuming CBA negotiations end and we have a season and we have an off season, like they should tell Jackie Young, like, hey, she gets her what, it would be her 3rd ring, and if the Aces win, and say, hey, you amazing player. I want to say she's, I don't know, maybe 27. I actually have no clue what her age is, but she's kind of been playing behind who might go down as the greatest player of all time. Do you want to be a number 1 on the Valkyries? And they market that and tell her that she would be our star, and we'd have a backcourt of her and Burton. That would be a pretty fun watch. I would love to have Jackie Young on the Valkyries.
Number 1 draft pick in 2019. She is 28 years old. And
yep.
she, like, athleticism is still like off the hook for her.
I know we weren't totally watching then, but I've heard No Offseason talk about this on the podcast, and they had 3 back-to-back number 1 picks. They had Kelsey Plum, next year Asia, next year Jackie. It's a hell of a lottery of luck, man.
I know. It's crazy. So like I said, game 3 on Wednesday. Let's stay on the WNBA angle, the league angle, because Napheesa Collier, in her exit interview, went Tupac Shakur all over Cathy Englebert, and a lot of really pointed comments. And I was a little fearful of how directly disrespectful those comments were until I started to see all of the players back her up. And I was like, oh, that's interesting because, she's one of the top players in the league. She's being a leader for her crew. She has her own experience as a owner of a small business called Unrivaled. So this is not just thinking like a player. This is thinking bigger and looking at her business of basketball, and that being something that she does not feel is being taken seriously. I'm trying to think, like, at this point, is Cathy just the fall person for Adam Silver to come in here and be the baby face of the whole situation and go like, okay, we've heard this thing and we're listening or whatever? Because I can't imagine the public at large. I can't imagine there's lots of fans going like, you know what, that Cathy Englebert, she's doing a fantastic job right now. This WNBA thing blows up because of Caitlin Clark and the players and the game being so much better and the Bay Area market getting a team. And there's lots of different reasons. And Cathy's trying to keep it all together. And, if we are to believe Napheesa's statements, like just kind of taking it all for granted or maybe wanting some of the credit or whatever. It was just fascinating to see how much Napheesa was comfortable going directly at the woman whose job is to basically keep things going with her basketball league. Like, that was amazing to me.
Yeah, I mean, that was a wild day. I think I was at work and I saw like one Napheesa quote from her exit interview, and I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe she said that." And so I sent it in our Discord. I sent it to one of my friends, and then I scroll up on my Twitter, and there's 7 new tweets of new things she said where I was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe she said that." And then I was like, "Okay, so there's definitely something going on in her exit interview." And then you go and watch the exit interview, and it's a full-on prepared statement before she even takes any questions. So that was another reason to join the Discord. We were live talking about
Yeah, we
that in real time. We were like, "What the hell's going on?" And I don't know if you saw, I mean, I'm assuming you did because I think this information came out like a day or two ago, but then Cathy has her like addressing the press or whatever on Friday before the finals.
Yeah, her like statement to kick off the finals or whatever.
And like a day later, Napheesa says, "Yeah, we're not having that meeting that we agreed to have next week. Like, relationship is ruined."
And like, just to kind of give a little bit more context to what you're saying. So Napheesa goes very public with her statements. Cathy sort of says like things are being mischaracterized, including the comment about Caitlin Clark, which she said did not happen in that way. So Napheesa is basically saying, well, if you're not going to take responsibility for that comment, then we really have no reason to have a conversation. Sort of foreshadowing. I'm sure that foreshadowed her what she thought was going to be Cathy giving her a line of BS or something or whatever it was. And that was another statement. Like, that was the silent statement by Napheesa just saying, nah, I'm good. And so what, like, how does the public, how do fans see that? And I'm assuming they feel like Napheesa is more powerful than the commissioner of the league. And then what leverage does the commissioner of the league have when the best player or second best player, whatever you want to say, is just like, no, I don't need to do this. This is not part of my job description is to just meet with you. You are not telling the truth, and I don't have to stand for that. That is wild to me.
Yeah. 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 No, I mean, I think I had like a situation earlier in the year, and it's completely off topic, but it's kind of like resonating with like just the idea of like hearing someone and when you respond to them. Where I had a neighbor who wasn't entirely thrilled about. She, I think there were a few points that maybe I was running the bath too long when I was washing my dog. And I'll preface this by saying the neighbor and I are very good on good terms, and she's excellent. But we initially moved in, there were a few complaints. I think it was just because we were the new kids on the block. We're like
Yeah.
30 years younger anyway, so we're just like the easy target. But there was like 3 or 4 things that were kind of listed out in an email that was a little bit of like complaining a little bit about what we did or what they thought we did. And in my opinion, like 90% of that email was incorrect. So I responded in that sentiment that I was like, like kind of like, here's what you said, and here's my response. And not saying you're wrong, but like in my response, you'd be like, no, I'm denying this.
Yes.
And so her response came back, and it was not great. Like she was like basically saying this is not an acceptable response. And so my partner gets a hold of it, and she's just like a whiz at this, like at the email stuff. And she was able to frame it in a way where it's like, we hear you, but like, some things, sure, some things maybe not, but like we hear you. And it's been great ever since then. And when I listened to Cathy's press conference, I was like, you are not validating anything that Napheesa said. You are
There's no
doing exactly what
strategy.
I did. And now I don't know what it's like to, of course, hold that kind of position. And maybe if she does validate everything, is she fired? I don't know. But like I when I was listening to that, I was just like, this is pathetic. Like she's not. I totally expected that Napheesa thing where it's like you basically almost called her a liar without calling her a liar, a mischaracterization. So yeah, I'm not surprised that things are going the way it has. I think there's been more stories that came out that's like, where should they be directing their anger, in a sense of like, does Cathy even have that much power? Should it be more at the NBA because Cathy's just kind of reporting to the NBA owners and Adam Silver? It's like, I don't know how this is going to play out. It doesn't look like it's going in a direction that we as the fans want. Like, I think the real WNBA fans, of course, want these players to get paid. And it doesn't feel like we're reaching a solution in time for an October 31st deadline. No way in hell. So yeah, I kind of wonder what's going to happen here. And I think the WNBA and sports as a whole are very lucky that like Napheesa's as smart and outspoken as she is, because I thought that I was just listening to that, like just being like, man, I wish I could stand up for myself like this. So yeah, I don't know. What else do you have? Like
in Cathy's job, I'm sure there are things that she feels are these are kind of problems, just growing pains. And then the next level up is like, okay, like this is something that we're gonna have to prioritize. And then there's like crises. Like I feel like this was a crisis or a crisis, and she treated it like something that could wait. And if I'm Napheesa and company, the fact that she treated it like that is infuriating because it just leans into the narrative that Cathy is not taking them seriously. So I don't know if Cathy's a good person or a bad person or a good manager or a bad manager. She's obviously a successful businesswoman because or else she would not be in the role that she is. But some of the sort of the grit and the just work through it and there's no crying here, like some of that stuff that it seems that she kind of has built herself around, it doesn't work for everybody. And
no.
that is the thing that she needs to understand. Who are her customers? Well, she works for Adam Silver and the owners. Like she is the liaison and she works directly for them and she works with the players. So you may be able to use that type of speak with some of the owners, a little bit older, a lot older in some cases. But at the same time, that same gruff style may not work with a younger player like the idea that, can you speak to a Gen X person the same way that you could speak to what is the current what is your generation called?
Gen Z.
Gen Z. Like, do you have to learn how to speak to your folks a little bit differently to get the outcome that you're looking for? So that is what I see, and obviously this is just from the outside looking in. I don't have any real insight that anyone else doesn't have, but it's all about communication. It's literally what it is she has to have the ability to communicate. She has to have the ability to listen, and those players need to believe that she is listening to them and willing to do something about their concerns, like the referee thing. I don't know when is the first person who went to Cathy and said, yo, this referee situation is brutal. But we saw the end of the finals last year, where a lot of people thought the officiating was horrendous in the last game of the most important game of the entire season. As far as I could tell, they didn't really do much different. They just ran it back. And then you had coach after coach after coach be vocal about the officiating, like disrespectful about the officiating. And in some senses, I kind of feel like the disrespect is about the officiating, but it is also for the bigger ears of the bigger boss. And they want that frustration to get to her. And so why is that? Like, why do they feel like they have to yell and scream to get Cathy's attention? So that is something that I think, if you are Cathy's boss, that you should really look into. Like, why did we have to yell and scream and be disrespectful in order for Cathy to pay attention to us? And if Napheesa's comment is correct, that Cathy said only losers complain about officiating, that is such a narrow viewpoint to think about your league in. Like, you should think about making sure that everything about your league is as good as humanly possible with the amount of investment that you could spend. Not that these players who are the key to the whole thing are not tough enough, and if they complain, they are actually losers. That is just that is not something that a leader should actually say. So I'm sure this is not the last that we'll hear of it. We'll hear Cathy. I'm sure Cathy will come back with a much better statement than these ones that she's had, and hopefully Napheesa can kind of be a little bit more calm in these situations, because I think the league or the players need her leadership. And if you're gonna just basically flip your middle finger at the leader and say I'm out, like, that's not beneficial either. She could be the thing that helps drive this thing to where the players want it to go. So I hope that she does figure that part out, because she's got a lot of power and influence right now, being the best player or the second best player in the league. And same with Asia. But Asia seems to be a little bit more brand conscious, I guess, because of her stardom. And so maybe Napheesa's personality is a little different, and that is the type of person that they need to be the leader of the players. So that is something that is going to be interesting to see over this next 3 weeks or whatever, until this deadline of October 31st.
Yeah, I think some players are just like a little, like, some people are just better at, leading and being outspoken. Like, I think Asia is right there with Napheesa, but just might not be like, as good as that type of stuff. You can't expect, I guess, every best player to kind of have that ability. But like, Asia did say, like, she was disgusted by Cathy's comments.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Michael Jordan, historically, not a great leader of the players, right? Because he had his own brand to protect that was bigger than anybody else's brand, and even to some extent the league's brand. And so he wasn't going to get caught up in that stuff. And Napheesa, this is where I think Unrivaled may have a piece of it, which is she understands the WNBA's business a little bit more than most, because she's got her own startup league, and she saw all of the things that, I'm sure she learned a lot by being the, one of the owners of that league, and being behind getting the sponsorships and how did they get the money and all of that. That was probably like almost getting a business degree in a sense of just doing that. So she's also coming at it from a much smarter side than before she started running the league. So that's what I think is something also to check in on. Like, what if Unrivaled was just like, we're going to 30 teams, we're taking all of your players, and then the WNBA goes, well, we're giving all of these players a 2x or 3x increase, but we are allowing teams to have their contracts written out so that they can't play in Unrivaled. And then it's like, checkmate. Do you want to do that to Napheesa and Brianna? So this whole thing is so interesting. It's, these are business women and they are really smart and they understand that they are at the kind of at like the breaking point of whether this league continues to take off like it has, but they also have the power and control to kind of deflate it a little bit with a work stoppage. So there's a lot of pressure here for everyone involved.
Yeah, I thought that this was going to get resolved in that I thought that, maybe the owners and the NBA would kind of just give in a little bit and be like, like this, you can't have that same conversation that this league is losing money that people might have said a couple years ago. Like there's clear, like you can look at the attendance, like the Valkyries sold out every single game. You can look at, every single NBA owner seems to now want to get into the league. With Philly, with Detroit, and there's still way more. Like I know Boston's trying bad, and there's just so many factors of the Caitlyn effect, the Paige effect, the Angel effect, just like so many eyes, and it feels like it's everywhere, and you can't say like this isn't like a profitable thing. Like it clearly is. So I don't know. I kind of feel like I thought that this would get resolved and that people would come to their senses a little more, but it kind of seems like they're not like really kind of budging still. And that to me, like I think you do a work stoppage if you're the players and like kind of hold strong on this because they're not coming around. I think
every time a work stoppage has happened, it has taken some time for the fans to come back. So that is what you are risking. The owners probably know that as well.
this is too like corporate like annoyance for me. Like I feel like the players shouldn't have to budge. Like I feel like they're the reasons why we're watching all this. They're the reasons.
One of the complex things, and we'll move on after this, is that in the NBA, like so the league signed the $77 billion deal on the with their latest TV negotiation. So because you have the owners and the players, and they have negotiated a 50-50 split, it is very easy to figure out where the money goes. In the WNBA, the split is not 50-50 with owners and players because there's a league investment by the NBA. You have a WNBA ownership that owns some of the league. There's a little bit of double dipping with both WNBA and NBA owners being the same. And then there's this, they had to raise some money. And so they have like these individual owners that are involved. And then you have the players. So it's so much harder to kind of split the money. I would love to see, I don't know if we'll actually see it, but as they renegotiate this thing, like what percentage of basketball related income do the players actually get? Because
I saw 9%.
Yeah, I'm talking about for the new one, for what they want to negotiate, because it's not. I don't think it can be 50 with the way the money is split up.
No, because the NBA gets 50, and so then they have to take that other 50 and then divide it amongst the three groups that you mentioned.
Right. So what does that number get to? Because when you get to that number, then it'll make a little bit more sense to how much the salaries will increase and all of those things. But like, I would love to know what the players want or what they would agree to as to what that basketball related income percentage is going to be.
Yeah,
And
I have no.
there's other things involved too. They want certain, that they actually went a good amount last time on mothers and care, and then they got the flights last year, the private flights last year. So there have been sort of slowly but surely. I'm sure they feel like at this point they
It's
want a
money.
lot more than this slowly but surely salaries, benefits, all of the stuff because this is their one chance, right? It is their one opportunity in the history of this league where they actually have a chance to negotiate for big stuff.
Yeah, and I think they're just going to hold strong on the first point, which is that percentage, and we'll see where they get to because I think that we've said it multiple times on this podcast, but it's like, we want something, okay, then what are you going to give us on the other side from like that being the owners? And I just think they might really just hold strong on this um revenue share percentage. And I just wonder like what else is going to get addressed if they're just putting so much energy and focus into that first point, which I do believe requires that much energy and focus if they're not budging. But who knows, the officiating might slip under the kind of not be as high of a like a issue point for them
Mm-hmm.
because they're fighting for like, dude, $70,000 for the first year of a rookie contract or whatever it is. Like, what are we doing? So we will see.